Okay. Messed that up. That's fine. Gonna speed that along. Okay, that should be about right. Yeah. Alrighty. We're gonna go live in a little bit. Okay, we're going to get started in about a minute. I am now troubleshooting. Of course, I'm troubleshooting because this is, yeah, jeez Louise. Okay. Hopefully, All right, guys, we are once again having technical difficulties. Um, but I would love for you to tell me where you are watching from. I'm not sure what my computer is trying to do here. But it is 12:02 and we need to get started. So in the chat, if you are joining, tell me where you are joining from, and I will be watching the chat. Also, if you want to join me live, if you have any questions, there's a link in the comments, and you can join me live. I'm going to show this on the screen here. If your question is long, you don't feel like doing it, you can join me live here, because today we're going to talk about episode 2 of this power series. I think this is very important, is why I'm spending time to do this, because in this particular climate, I realized we don't have power, and that is the thing that we need in our careers, is power to get things done. So this is why I'm doing this. This is my mission. This is more than just it's more than just, oh, I have a podcast. that's not what this is about. What this is about is doing what I can do and what I know to help you. So if you are here, let me know. Say hi in the comments. Tell me where you're from. I'll give people a few minutes, and then I will start going over some more nuggets that I didn't get to include in the episode, and some things that are on my mind that I'm thinking through, as I'm, one, in a job search myself, but two, really thinking about how do we collectively help each other get through these times that we are in. So yeah, go ahead and leave me a comment in the chat. Let me know where you're from. Give me some energy if you're here. If anyone is here, I greatly appreciate it. I know I moved from Thursday. Last week I had it on Thursday. Hey, TK. Thank you for coming. We're going to get started in a few minutes. I'm going to give people like a minute or two. Let me know where you are from. Where are you in the world these days, TK? I'm going to put this in the chat. Where are you joining from? And so we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. I am trying new things, guys. And so this has been very interesting to see where everybody's from. Texas, yay. Yes, I think I knew that. Texas girls rule. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Okay, finally I see. Yes, TK, I see you. Demetrius, thanks for joining. Natalie, thanks for joining. So let's get started. I don't know if you guys have been following my podcast, but if you haven't, let me give some context for anybody who sees this video for the first time, and this is the first time you're seeing me. My name is Felicia Ann Rose Enuha. I am the executive producer, host, creator of the 𝗟𝗏 show, the career management podcast for Black women. We are unapologetically for Black women, but that doesn't mean that we're exclusive. There are all types of people that I've worked with over the years, and the reason why I'm unapologetic about Black women, besides me being a Black woman, is that when we fix the workplace for Black women, we fix the workplace for everybody. And that is just unfortunately a fundamental truth in our current society. And so um, I wanted to set out to give us content around how we can make our workplace, our jobs better for ourselves. I don't know about you, but me personally, in corporate America, I have an MBA from Kelly, Indiana University, the Kelly School of Business. And I have found many, many challenges because I grew up in a single parent household with my mom and my grandma, and my mom was a teacher's assistant, and that was her career most of my childhood. And so she didn't work in corporate, she worked at an elementary school. And so when I got into corporate companies and big companies, Fortune 500 companies, I didn't know. There's so much I didn't know. And I struggled. I struggled so much. And in the past few years, a couple years before the pandemic, I really made it a mission to understand why was I having this particular human experience. And as I started learning, I wanted to share what I was learning. And so that is the catalyst of everything I do. And every time you see me, know I'm probably talking something about career or humanity. Because at the end of the day, the way we currently operate in our society, we try to separate humanity from the workplace, and it's doing a disservice to us all. We see record numbers of people experiencing burnout, with the stress that has come from this, high knowledge worker economy, um, where you just can't turn it off. And then you add in social media. It's all a lot for the human being. And I just want to find ways to create solutions. I want to bring you tactical things to help you figure out and actually successfully execute a better work and life for you. Because if we all can have better lives, then we'll hopefully treat each other better. We'll be better humans to ourselves and to each other. And at the end of the day, what matters most is using the time that we have on this earth to the best of our abilities, and making sure that we love each other. And I know that sometimes is difficult. So if you're joining, please put in the chat where you're from if you have any questions. So the cool thing is I'm using Riverside, not trying to give them an ad. I just wanted to be transparent to stream this. And so what that means is that you can actually click the link from a desktop. You can click this. Hold on, I'm gonna put the link on the screen. But you can click paste. It's not pasting. Okay, let me just show this. You can click this link, Riverside FM Studio, for the live Q&A. And when you do that, and I also put the link in the comments. So when you do that, you can actually join me live and we can have a conversation. I'll be able to hear you. If you don't want to be on camera, you don't have to be on camera, but I'll at least be able to hear you and we can have a dialogue. I can bring you up from the audience that way. So if that's something anybody wants to do, just put in the comments, or I think it'll pop up for me. We haven't done this before, trying new things. So bear with me. I think also there may be a little bit of delay, so be patient with me as we go along. I'm trying to monitor for comments and make sure that if there's any questions, they'll be answered. Now, let's get into it. I actually have a guide here that I'm going to pull up and talk about this book, The 7 Rules of Power. We're on chapter 2. Or not chapter 2, we're on rule number 2. The second rule of this book break the rules. So the first rule was get out of your own way. And the second rule is break the rules. And so I want to ask you guys, have you ever felt like playing by the book wasn't getting you anywhere? So put yes or no in the comments. Like, do you feel like you follow the rules? So put yes. And then do you feel like you following the rules is helping you? Put yes or no. So you can put yes if you follow the rules, put no if you follow the rules. And then the second yes or no is, has that helped you? So mine is yes, I have followed rules, and then no, they have not helped me. They have not. They just, following rules has not helped me. I'm going to drink some coffee here. So no and no. So TK, tell me, so did you haven't followed any rules, but has not following the rules not been helpful? I wasn't expecting no and no. I was expecting yes and no. That's what I was expecting. Yep, not following the rules is more helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's you got to break the rules. And so my hope is that by the end of this time together, and if you're watching the replay, that you'll have a clear strategy for breaking the right rules to gain power at work. So if you are just joining, drop power moves. We got TK in the house. Thank you, TK, for joining on Saturday morning. I appreciate you. In Texas, where I'm from Texas, guys. So I'm always going to rep Texas. I went to the University of Texas at Austin undergrad, like always going to rep Texas. So let's talk about why following the rules doesn't always work. Okay. So in this book, there's an example about Christina, I'm going to mess up her name, Trotino, I think that's her name. And so here's the thing about Christina. She was taking Professor Pfeffer's class, and basically she was like, I'm going to do a little experiment. So there was a conference where there were going to be all these big names and celebrities, and she acted like she was a reporter from Forbes. And she sent an email like, can I get in? I'm a reporter from Forbes. And then they emailed her back and they were like, well, which session do you want to go to? And then she waited to email them back. Like, she didn't email them back right away because she wanted to create this appearance that she was this, you know, in-demand reporter. And so when she finally emailed them back at the last minute, she wanted to invite, she was bringing her boyfriend, but they asked her how many people. And then she was like, oh, it's me. And then she just ended up bringing her boyfriend with her because she wasn't sure if he was going to come or not. So then she ended up bringing him with her. And they were like, we only have you on the list. Well, this is Brad. Like, she didn't even say, like, this is my boyfriend or nothing. She just said, this is Brad, as if somebody should know who Brad is. And I don't remember if that's the name she used, but she just like, this is his name. This is who this is. And they were like, oh, and then they made room for him. And she was like at the table with like some celebrity. I think she had a choice to be with somebody and Martha Stewart or at this private dinner or whatever. It was wild. Like, you have to read the story in the book. But I was like, I've just never been that brazen. If you've been that brazen and you like, I'm going to get into this place that I'm not supposed to be in, I'm just going to act like I belong and see how far I get, let me know. Like, I want to know because I need to learn from you. Usually the only rules I break, if it's 3 a.m. and I'm sitting in a red light and I'm out probably coming home from like a late night of hanging out with my friends, I will run a red light. I won't sit there because I don't feel safe sitting there. It doesn't seem safe. I feel like at that time of night when there's no traffic, that the traffic lights are, you know, suggestions. Oh, wow. So TK says, I do this all the time. That's when I realize people do not care. It's the confidence you project. Listen, listen. It is about confidence. And the thing that I want to really talk about today is when we're at work, and I know this feels very scary, but when we're at work, we really have to strategically figure out what rules we can break that's going to set us apart, get us ahead. So one of the rules that I want to talk about that I think is really like pervasive in corporate America, in any workplace really. I know a lot of times I don't want to exclude any sectors. I've worked for these big corporations, but if you work in schools, if you work in universities, or you work in the government, God bless the government workers right now, especially. But if you work in any workplace, a lot of workplaces have hierarchy. And the bigger the company by employee size, so if there's 1,000 employees, if there's 2,000 employees, the more hierarchy is created between the workers and the leadership. And I get it, right? Like if there's 10,000 employees, everybody can't talk to the CEO. Okay. Like, what are we doing? We have to have some structure, some organization. We all have to move along the business, right? Like that's why we all have jobs in this organization. In smaller companies, sure, you maybe can get on the CEO's calendar. It makes sense, right? You're a smaller team, you're working together, it's high collaboration. But as you work for companies who've scaled, who are bigger, the Fortune 500s, or you work for big systems like university systems, you're not going to go talk to the head dean or the president of the whole university. Like you're not going to do that. But that's part of the problem is because that's a rule that we've created and we've made, like, oh, you can't do that. And then I remember being junior in my career and being told like, you can't just talk to the CEO, or you can't just, now mind you, the CEO walk around the building saying hi to people. But I was told, if you say the wrong thing, that could be a career limiting move. So then there was this fear put into, if you say the wrong thing to somebody that's that high in leadership, it could cost you your job. And I'm here to debunk that. That's a lie. They lied to you. The reason why your manager, middle manager, they don't want you to tell on them. They don't want you to have that relationship, because if you build a relationship with somebody who in a hierarchical structure has more power and influence than your actual manager, that puts them at a disadvantage on the chessboard. That's why they don't want you to build that relationship. And so I'm here to tell you the first rule that you need to break is that hierarchy rule. Whatever hierarchy rule. Now, first, you got to understand, what is the hierarchy rule in your workplace? Is there this rule unspoken that you can't talk to whoever? Now, the first thing I want you to think through is there a rule? Yes or no? So if you're working right now and you have that rule, put in the chat, I have this rule. I have this rule, or I've been subjected to this rule. Just let me know this is a rule that you have been subjected to. I'm looking for the chat. Now, here's how you need to think through breaking this rule. Number one, based on your company's culture. If you have a company culture where there's this saying like, oh, open door policy. If you hear open door policy, if you hear things like, oh, we're one big family. If you hear anything that tries to make it seem like we're more humble than what we actually are, then what you want to do is you want to get the soundbite that your company uses, however they describe that they're open culture and family and blah, 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 blah. The second thing you want to do is just take those sound bites. Make sure you have those sound bites at the ready. So, and it all makes sense in a second. Then what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to the senior leaders who seem more amicable, more open, like the cool cat of the crew. There's always one. There's always a cool leader that's like friendly and open, and they actually want to talk to people because they know a secret. They know that their direct reports are BSing them, and they know that they need to have these sidebar conversations with the people that are actually close to the work to really know what's going on. And to be fair, it is the people in the middle's job to BS leadership. Let me tell you why. We're going to go off on a big tangent for a second. It's their job because they're supposed to filter information. They're supposed to be smart enough and capable enough to kill the fires downside and only bring leadership the pertinent information they need to know to make important decisions. That is their job. But the problem is people have their own agendas. People are human. Everybody's playing their own chessboard. So senior leaders don't get all the information that they would like. And they know the only way to get that is through talking with you, the worker bee, if you're closer to the work. Now, you got to be careful with all this, okay? But you do need to break these rules. And the thing that you need to do is build a relationship with the senior leader. Not to go tattletale on your boss or your boss's boss, but to have a better understanding of where you fit in the organization, to get visibility, and most importantly, to try to curate sponsorship. You can't ask anybody to be your sponsor, but you can curate sponsorship for yourself in an organization through relationship building. So if the senior leader knows you, they know what you're working on, you've like come to them just in general for career advice and counsel. And I love that phrase. I was taught that a long time ago. Say, hey, I would love some advice and counsel in an email. And most older people over 50, 55, they're like, oh, okay, I got you, right? Like if they are amenable and they actually want to help people in the organization, then they will help you. But this is the thing, right? Like if you're going to break a rule, one, pay attention to your company's culture and understand what happens when you break this rule in the company, right? Two, the first rule you need to break is the hierarchy rule. And you need to build relationships with the people, the senior leaders, as soon as you can, as fast as you can. And we'll talk about how to do that when we talk about networking, because that's one of the rules is networking relentlessly. But then the third thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you aren't being an agent of chaos. You want to make sure that you are transparent about your rule breaking and boldly, because what that does is that makes it seem like it's not breaking a rule. So if you don't acknowledge that there's this, even though you know there's this unspoken rule, and it might have even been spoken to you, but even though you know this, if you act like it doesn't exist, like the rule is, oh, you can't talk to higher ups. Okay. Oh, I didn't talk to them. They talked to me. What was I supposed to do? Not talk to them? That's awkward. That seems career limiting. Always smile. You got to do what you got to do, because this is how you're going to amass power and influence. And the most important thing is to amass power and influence. Yes, TK says, I literally can't hide anything. Is that because of your facial expressions? I know for me, that's part of it. Yep. I feel you. She says, my face tells it all, and I just smile. And I totally get that because, oof, that I think that's a curse for us. Hey, I see some people are joining us live from YouTube. Like, let me know where you're from. Let me know if you have any questions about this week's episode on breaking all the rules. We are breaking down the first 7 episodes of the season, the 7 Rules of Power by Professor Jeffrey Pfeffer at Stanford University. So that's the first rule that you need to break in your organization, is that hierarchy rule. And a lot of companies have these weird hierarchy rules. Don't follow those rules. Okay. What's a rule that you have in your organization? Please tell me in the chat. What's a rule that you have in your organization that you feel like they just made that up? And we're going to talk about it. And I'll talk about how you break that rule to your advantage. Especially if you want to challenge that rule, go ahead and tell me what rule you would want to challenge. Just going to give it a few minutes here because there's a bit of a delay. Outside of the hierarchy rule, what rule would you challenge? I'm looking for comments. If you see me looking over there, I'm looking for comments. What rule would I challenge? Another rule I would challenge. I have a rule you definitely need to always challenge. Let's say you are voluntold extra work, extra project. Say no. Just say no. If it doesn't give you visibility, it won't help you get promoted, it won't help you get more money, don't do it. It's not in your job description, don't do it. If it is something you want to do, then I would ask for a compensation adjustment for the additional workload. And I know a lot of people are like, girl, do you understand the climate we're in? I can't afford to lose my job. If you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your job. Doing the extra work isn't going to help you. It's not going to help you keep your job. If anything, it's just going to get you more work. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, that don't feel right, Felicia. This is the time to counter. This is the time to be vocal. I know it doesn't feel like it. And as somebody who's in the job market, one thing I realized is when you try to conform and when you try to get along, it, for whatever reason, it's counterintuitive. Like, it's the thing that gets you put on the layoff list. Oh, we don't really need him. We need this person who's going to push the needle. Sometimes we're going to be in win-win situations and sometimes we're going to be in lose-lose situations. But if you're going to take chances and hedge your bets, you're going to win. You're going to win if you break the rules. Oh, this is very good. Yes, TK, you are so right. TK says, and I'm going to show it on the screen. I've never worked more than those 40 allotted hours per week. If you let them break the boundary, they know they would and continue to break it. And that is so true. And while we're talking about breaking rules, the difference between rules and boundaries is so very important. A rule is something you communicate to people and you're trying to dictate their action. You don't want to operate that way at work. Don't make rules for people, okay? Boundaries dictate how you act. So a boundary is, I work 40 hours a week. That means you only work those 40 hours a week. And if it's something that needs to be done outside of those 40 hours, then it'll just have to wait. And you just make it wait. You don't communicate that. You don't say nothing about it. Action speaks your boundaries. You don't have to tell people that I have a boundary. I see this on TV. I'm like, why are you telling me your boundary? Because you can tell me your boundary, but then if you break your own boundary, then what good was that? So boundaries at work. This is another rule breaking in a way, right? Yes, you exhibit your boundaries. Exactly. So another rule that you don't even have to communicate it, or boundary rather, sorry, that you should have is on your working hours. So one time I had a manager who she wanted to call whenever she wanted to call, and I messed up. I shouldn't have done this. I learned from this. I was like, yeah, well, I pretty much am unavailable after 7 p.m. I shouldn't have never said that. What I should have just been like, okay, okay. And then when she called late, oh, I missed your call. Oh, I'm so sorry. And I call her back the next day. That's what I should have done. But when I communicated to her that I wouldn't be available, I got myself on the layoff list. That I distinctly remember that. I was like, oh, because once I put in her mind that I wouldn't just do whatever she wanted whenever she wanted, then she didn't need me. I could go. Because she wanted people she could control. And you can let people think they're controlling you without controlling you by doing that simple thing. That's the trick. Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry. Oopsie. That's one of the best ways to hold your boundary and break the rules that people are trying to set for you, because there's nothing they can really do about it. And the best thing about rule breaking is people don't expect you to break rules. They expect you to follow the rules. So when you break them, it shocks them, and then it's too late. You already broke it. What you gonna do? And nothing bad happens when you broke the rule, because a lot of these rules are stupid and arbitrary anyway. So break it. It's that simple. Like there's no need to conform, guys. And I'll be honest with you, in this moment, like right now, I'm going live on LinkedIn. I'm live on YouTube. These recordings are going to stay up. I am monitoring my curse words. I'm trying. I don't want to do that. Per se. I mean, I curse on my podcast, but since we're live and it's on YouTube, let me act like I have some sense. So if you're an employer and you're looking for a marketing executive and you're considering my application, I do know how to act in the workplace. I'm here to teach people how to act in the workplace so that they get ahead, which means they're going to be a better employee for you. Okay? So that's my disclaimer for any potential employers who are looking at this. But for the longest time, I was trying to figure out how to exist and be honest about the shenanigans at work and how we get through it. And I realized, I was like, I can't be double-minded. Like some people are not going to appreciate this podcast because I'm being honest and telling the truth in a way that's direct and no holds barred. Like, this is it. I'm telling you to go to work and break rules. Who really wants to hear that? I get it. But in order to be successful, the people who are successful, and we can even see it, unfortunately, in our current political climate, people breaking rules left and right, just doing whatever they want willy-nilly, and they're grabbing power willy-nilly. On a smaller scale, in your sphere, you can do the same thing. Hopefully you do this for good and not evil. Hopefully you do these things where it actually helps somebody and it actually grows the company and makes them more money, because usually that's what can happen if you break the bureaucracy that's in your workplace, and bring innovation and new ideas. You usually, when you break that stuff, you usually win. It's a risk, it's scary, but it's a win. And then the other thing in rule breaking I would use against your company, and this is where you have to understand your company's culture. If you have a company culture that says, oh, we reward mistakes, and we reward failure because we learn from failure. Use that language. Say, hey, I broke this. We failed at this, but this is what we learned. And like, be like proud and boisterous about it, and like excited about it, and bring like all this positive energy to it. It's discombobulating. You got to understand, sometimes when you break the rule, and if it doesn't turn out how you thought it would turn out, and people are looking at you crazy, all you got to do is be super excited about what you learned from breaking that thing, or breaking the rule, or breaking the project, or whatever happened that didn't go the way you were planning. Be just super excited about it. Be like, oh my God, we learned so much. I'm so glad we did this. Thank you for aligning, and like, even though they're not aligned. Thank you for aligning, and like, thank you for your support. Like, look at all what we learned. Here's what we're going to do next. Like, just be super excited about it. And that person, they want to be mad, but it's hard to match anger with excitement. Like, that person is just going to be, and they're going to be frustrated. And then you're going to be looking at them like, what's the matter? And then the last thing humans want to do, because humans are contrarian by nature. So if I'm frustrated with you, and then you excitedly say, well, what's wrong? I can't come back and be like, rah, 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 because now I look crazy. Because you've hyped everybody else up. You're hype. Everybody's hype. And now here I come with a bucket of water, and I have to choose not to. So now I'm like, now I have to say nothing's wrong. Okay. And sure, I may figure out how to pull you aside later, but I can't match your hypeness with my bucket of water energy. Like, it just, human behavior just doesn't work that way. So you really gotta just control the hype. That's another part of rule breaking strategically. Control the hype. You do that, you can get away with a lot. And yeah, TK, you were so right. I'm glad you ended up in happy situations by doing that. That's what's up. Well, listen, guys, I have 5 more minutes. I'm not getting any questions, and I don't want to just talk at you, and I want to be cognizant of time. It's Saturday. I also have brunch. I hope Saturday works, because I think I'm going to have to move these to Saturday. Oh, thank you. I really am trying to add value. That is my goal. If this is fun, entertaining, and also educational, that is the whole point. I want you to be able to think through some things, take it back into the workplace, and then let me know. Hit us up at ask@trilliumba.com. Let me know how it's working for you. Like, how are these tips, tricks, and tactics when you execute them, tell me about it, because sometimes it's in the execution we might need to tweak it. But most of the time, when I tell you these things work, they work. But let me tell you why they work before I let you go. They work because human behavior is predictable. The reason why I like this book, 7 Rules of Power, it's like, for me, it's the companion guide to how to win friends and influence people. And I wish I had had this book. Well, this book came out in 2022. But I wish I had known about this work and the work on power dynamics in the workplace and paths to power. I wish I had known about this, because this was the companion guide I needed to how to win friends and influence people. So if you have been watching the podcast or listening to the podcast, we didn't start doing video until last year. But if you've been listening to this podcast for years now, since 2018, then you know I have been preaching how to win friends and influence people can help give you tactical knowledge on how to move and how to grow relationships and how to build yourself up and get promoted in the workplace. And yes, those tactics work, but what I was missing was the power component. And so now I feel like I have a complete plan of attack to go into a workplace and thrive. And I'm very, very excited about this, because this feels like the nugget I was missing, not just for myself, but for some of my consulting clients. So anyway, guys, it is almost 12:45. I said I was going to stop at 12:45. If you don't have any questions, and I'm going to wait a few minutes. I know there's a bit of a lag in the timing, but if you have any last minute questions, I'm here to answer your questions. Thank you so much for joining live. We'll be back next week. I'm going to get my life together and advertise a little bit earlier and send emails out earlier. I've been applying for jobs. So the job search is real. Shout out to everybody who sent me opportunities. I've been interviewing, but I'm gonna share something. I shared this in a LinkedIn post, but I want to share it live. I was in an interview process and I made it to like maybe the second to final round. I don't know if it was the final round or second to final round. I wasn't quite clear on that, but not being chosen in that process after like all these conversations, it broke something in me. And I realized like I couldn't keep like trying to hide the podcast, because that's what I did. And that seemed to be working. Like I had taken the podcast off my resume. I didn't post, like I had recorded episodes ready to go live. I like to start the season in Black History Month, but I didn't start until March because I was in this interview process and I wanted to make it seem like I wasn't doing the podcast anymore. And after I didn't get that offer, I just was like, I can't keep pretending I'm somebody I'm not. And it's not working for me. And so I've made a promise to myself that I was going to be who I am. And there's a professional version of me and there's an outside work version of me, right? Like everybody else. But this podcast means so much to me that it helps people, and I'm doubling down on it. So I don't know what that means. And sometimes when I think about it practically, it scares me because I do need a job. I haven't worked since 2023. And it's a financial strain that I didn't plan for. So I need a job. But I'm prayerful that everything will work out, and I'm just going to continue to try to add value into the world via this platform, and we'll see what happens. 𝗟𝗏𝗪𝗪, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. My apologies. But I'm going to read your comment here, or your question. I have 2 jobs, the one is part-time in the community health field and I want to transition into full-time work. How can I exhibit or ask for more work so that it's full-time and I can leave my entry-level finance job? So one, my question to you would be, what relationship do you have with your supervisor? Why is this part-time? Is it that the organization has budget constraints? It's mission driven? The first step though is to have the conversation with your manager and ask, like, what would it look like if I did this work part-time? And in fact, before you say that, you want to tell your manager, hey, I really enjoy the work that I'm doing. I've been here, and you say, I've been here X amount of time, and this work is really fulfilling to me. And then you say, what would it look like for me to work here full time? What would that mean for the organization? Is there a way we can create a win-win? And so you have to make sure that you working full time at the one job will pay you the part-time and full-time together so that it keeps you financially whole, if that's something you care about. I personally don't believe in pay cuts. So if you can figure out this, or the other thing you can do is talk to your manager or the leadership in your organization that you've built any relationship with to say, hey, I've been doing this work part-time and I really love it. It's very fulfilling. I feel like it's part of the calling for me. I'm really good at this. I'm now going to look for full-time opportunities. Can you give me advice and counsel? Because it may be the organization you're with only has budget for part-time or has some kind of constraint, but they know other health organizations, community health organizations that may be hiring. And since now you've demonstrated capability in that work in that field, now you can take that experience and gain visibility and exposure to other organizations that do similar work. And then you can find yourself a full-time job there. So that's how I would approach it without knowing the full details. Yes, and I'm glad you don't want to take a pay cut. No pay cuts. I don't believe in pay cuts. Now, sometimes there's circumstances, but we try to avoid those at all costs. But yeah. So guys, it is now almost 12:50. I have to run. Thank you so much for joining us today in this live. Thank you guys for your questions. I really appreciate you and the interaction. If you are watching this if you're watching the replay, drop us questions in the chat. I'll be looking back to see if anybody has any questions that they want to add or comments they want to make. I'll be looking throughout the week. Join us next week where we talk about our third rule. I don't have the rules memorized, guys. Let's see. The third rule is show up in a powerful fashion. So we're going to talk about personal branding and what that means. And honestly, it's still something I'm working on for myself too. So we're going to talk about the things that I've been learning on how to show up in a powerful fashion next week. Bring your questions. We're going to talk through the worksheet that I will have live when the episode comes out tomorrow on Sunday. So follow along. I hope this is helpful. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, hit us up at ask@𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. And I will see you guys next week. Bye. Okay. Do 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 do. Oh shit.